There are many things that makes the classic archer in Skyrim the most overpowered way to play. According to Todd Howard, you should be upgrading your bow to higher tiered weapons, use arrows that aren't crafted from driftwood rotting in that radioactive lake next to the data center, enchant your bow for helpful effects and hitting elemental weaknesses, using poisons for the handful of people that actually use poisons, and always being in stealth. But what if you were to take away every one of these things? That is what I will try to do against my therapist's best intentions, as today, I will attempt to beat Skyrim as the worst possible archer. So what constitutes being the worst possible archer? As for my rules, I have 4 of them. The first is that I'm only allowed to use the longbow, aka the worst bow in the game. I am only allowed to use practice arrows, a hilariously overpowered bow that does 0 damage, and the fork over there is an envy of its dragon slaying prowess. I am not allowed to enchant my bow, armor enchantments are fine, and lastly, I am not allowed to be in stealth for combat. Yeah, I really set myself up to not have a not so pleasant time, so no bonus objectives. So how of a time will I have before I figure it would be better to strangle myself with the drawstring? Let's find out. Beginning as a prisoner for the simple crime of existing, I chose the Bosmer for semi-obvious reasons, but for those who aren't in the know, they have the highest start to archery. I originally wanted to spec into alchemy, which the Bosmer has the highest starting alchemy stat, but that wouldn't work out. I then turned my face into something that would disgrace my heritage. Does this look like something to let live? I didn't think so. I couldn't think of a name today, or my parents didn't think I would make it very far in life. Heads are rolling, dragons are trolling, and the town is boiling. Must be a wonderful day in Nebraska. I did my usual city escape and set it with Hadvar in a trusty bucket. I wanted to get out of the tutorial as fast as I can, though this action would end up biting me later. I probably should have let the Imperials butcher the Stormcloaks so I can take a longbow from one of their corpses. Here I am in my arrogance, thinking I could just purchase one. They're the worst bows. How hard could they be to get? Well, before long I am out in the sunshine, and I began a mad collection scramble, since at this point, I actually didn't know what I wanted to challenge run as. I was thinking I could beat Skyrim with poisons only, hence me collecting plant life and fish. I ran to the starter town, thinking I could get a longbow. But nope. They do have fishing rods though. There is more than one store in Skyrim thankfully, so I head to the big city and go shopping since all the small town stores are closed except for the General of the Inflated Dollar. I traded out a couple of the stores in Whiterun, but they also didn't have any longbows. Though it really escaped my mind going to the actual archery shop, but this is my smooth brain we're talking about. The next idea that filtered into the empty brain pan of my head is the Khajiit vendor chest. I always use them to supplement my lack of skill. Sure, I do take a few enchanted weapons for free levels, along with gold from my adventures, but they are also lacking my desired weaponry. I did venture into my solitude, and I managed to get a balcony seat at an affordable theater. I'm not role-playing as a president, so I'm at least safe from any gunshots in the back, but the stagehand had an unfortunate accident on the set. Yeah, solitude was another bloody bust, but at least they had fishing rods. Again. I then finished my plundering of the not-so-secret vendor stashes, stocking up on poisons, and got some fortified archery enchantments for my troubles, so at least I can supplement my very DPS, bringing my damage from 5 to 6. I didn't go hog wild on my damage fortifications just yet. I wanted to avoid going rampant on my cheating, and I wasted my level ups on alchemy. Still naive on what run I wanted to do. The next town I checked out was Falkreath, but the first store I checked out, I was immediately accosted by racism. Alright. That is another business to add to the boycott list, since the owner is a douchebag. Yep, another town bites the dust, but since I was in the area, I decided to go get the second half of my arsenal, the ammunition. It was a quick hike to the south, by way of Skyrim mountain goating, to Agni's cabin, who offers to show me the basics of archery. I did procure a set of practice arrows, so now I am at least halfway there. There's a free hunter bow on the ground, but that is way too overpowered for my skill level of still figuring out which end of the bow the arrows come out of, so back to finding the most common bow. Allegedly. I tried out Markarth next, thinking it would be a safe city to shop in. I am immediately reminded this is actually East St. Louis, and someone was shanked right in front of me. Probably not the best city to find my bow, but sure as hell is a great city to find performance-enhancing drugs, along with psychopaths, and at least the rent is cheap, so I feel right at home. I started to vendor exploit, and all signs are pointing to fishing rods. I tried traveling to the bitter north of Minnesota for any bows, and the heavens are giving me a slight hint of what I should do for a challenge run. I consulted the wiki, and they suggest if I want to give myself a longbow, I cheat and console command in my bow. I am not a cheater. I am just some loser who would use secret vendor chest or item duplications, or infinite money exploits, or cloning materials out of nothing, or using a restoration loop to increase my health to god mode levels, or infinite magicka, or punching a vendor in multiple timelines until I get the item I want, or use a horse to get off at a 90-degree angle and enable flight mode, but I am not a cheater! I have no idea where that sentence was going, but the next best idea was leading a group of bandits to raid a small settlement that does not have any guards, with the hopes they have bows on their persons. They all have melee weapons, rendering them useless in the eyes of the Lord. I probably should have just lost them in the woods and fast traveled away, but I am very curious where this will go. When they arrived in Riverwood, they killed a dog. I knew at these moments, these ass need to die, but I cannot be the one to kill them. I just led them around in circles, watching as they failed to pathfind around some fence, going back and forth like an extended recurring skit from an old cartoon, as they do not know how to jump off a skyscraper to the ground below. They were even stumped how I got on top of a pile of wood, standing there in awe. I swear, the AI in this game is about as bright as trying to light a campfire at the bottom of a lake. I don't even think they can climb out the shallow end of the gene pool, that's for sure. And they turned to raiding, since they were laughed out of their own hometowns. I had to wait until everyone could wake up so the raiders can begin their pillaging. Yeah, the early bird that woke up didn't get the worm. Instead, she became worm food. At least Vandal was out to help in the protection of the town. Sure, he managed to get one, but he was executed in the streets, proving that Sven is the better suitor to Camilla. At least Alvor, when he woke up, immediately embraced his wrestling persona and cracked one of the bandits' heads on the floorboards. Yeah, suffice to say, Alvor was the only person here worth anything. Sure beats Delphine. At this point, I have exhausted every single outcome that comes to my very backwards thinking brain that always has to do things in the worst possible way before doing the actual most sensible thing. Instead of becoming a bandit leader, I went to the store that actually specializes in bows, and I finally got my worst bow in the game. That was 93 gold well spent, and now I can return to Agni's cabin to learn how to use the bow properly and not use the bow as a katana. Well, with my arrows, I think I might get more mileage out of this. I get well endowed into the training, mostly because I like Agni, even managing to hit a subscribe button from afar. And I ended up getting so in tune with training, I managed to go through my entire training arc, though the last one does end up getting the best of me, just because of my failing eyesight cannot hit the target in the back. But eventually, I exceed Agni's expectations of not launching the arrow right into my eye socket, and I am done training. But the only way you can earn more arrows without exploits is by talking to Agni and failing at her training.
I am such a failure. I fail at failing.
Well, this is Skyrim, and there are often multiple solutions to a problem, most unintentional. My solution is simply hiring an item generator and cloning the worst arrow in the game ad nauseum. I will need as many arrows as I can get, and I do get pretty good at dropping my skills on the floor. I kept at it until I had enough to think I might be able to kill a simple bandit. I was going to do poisons for the run, but at this point, I abandoned that notion. I will save it for a future run, mostly because I realized while going through a depressing town, it probably isn't a good idea to eat the very funny colored plants. We are probably a quarter of the way through the run, so it's finally time to begin the fun. Even though I'm not allowed to sneak, it doesn't mean I can't lob essentially plungers from outside their peripheral vision, at least for 5 seconds until the Roman cosplayer comes into view. Then they dogpiled onto my position. If there is any one thing to take away from this video, besides I really should be admitted to the nearest institution, it is that the AI is really, and I mean really, stupid. Any slight change in elevation will cause them to lobotomize themselves with crayons from their childhood. At least I am able to come out of the excursions without too worse from wear. Just takes about 5 to 10 arrows per bandit, depending on how crap my aim is. I am really going to have to pick my fights carefully, and if push comes to shove, I will let scripted events take place if it means saving 20 arrows. As for my first enemy that has health to speak of, the frostbite spider took quite a few arrows to take down. I am very grateful that the spider is very thick for the doorway, or else I might have to experience the very sensual fetish of having spider eggs enter every orifice of my body and the young will eat their way out. Yeah, I am not going to have any of that. If you have seen my face, I choose by the way of sexual selection to be celibate, thank you very much. Arvil runs away from the sadist who enjoys practicing his archery on living specimens, unlike the straw ones. He tried having enough of my bullshit, but unfortunately for him, I have plot armor, and quickly revealed his claw he was hiding in his pants. As for the Draugr, yeah, the arrows do minuscule damage to the undead, but if there is one thing they don't have, it is having a lack of timing and knowledge to not bathe in oil while lighting a candle under some curtains. At the very least, with a couple damage buffs from perks, I can at least beat the Draugr without going through a never-ending quiver. Though sometimes all it takes to not die is to stand on some stairs while facing down a paraplegic with a knife. As for the boss fight, the Overlord definitely could hit harder, faster, employ wave dash techniques, and has a lot of health. He was not of much of a threat. Then again, he spent the entire fight gloating that he is vastly superior to my twink physique. It's not my fault I can't afford food, okay? I handed in the golden claw that is slightly brown and stinks like a porta potty in the middle of a hot summer afternoon, and I do enchant a couple items to fortify my archery a few points. This will end up helping out my damage so much during my run, though I figured I could try to beat Murmurdeer without going down the best perk tree in Skyrim. I think I am doing some damage to the dragon. Honestly, I am not for sure if I'm doing any damage at all. Then again, dragons have 900 health, meanwhile my bow has like 15 damage at this point with perks. I am but an onlooker in this fight, but a humble ad that is only there to inflate the numbers game and sometimes to build a resource meter to redirect to the actual threats of the fight. A minuscule cog in the corporate machine that believes they have actual power and the ability to help those under his watch, but in all reality is but a blip, and it won't matter if they get laid off during the closures, and the good metrics are nothing. Let's just fire that stupid manager for something stupid, so the company doesn't have to pay any severance, casting out the outcast to a failing economy without any good job prospects. Welcome to layoff season. At least I could get the last shot on the dragon and claim the victory, and the dragon can go into the eternal void very humiliated. With my startup done, I figured I could do some quick maintenance to my build, going for a couple staples since I happen to travel to Dawnstar. The Vigilants are alive, but given my lackluster situation, I did not feel comfortable in committing casual genocide. My self-preservation outweighs my bloody tendencies this time. At least for now. Deep down, we all yearn to do Fortnite dances in the middle of Highway 67 because of some TikTok trend. At this point, the game is really not a fan of my antics. Might be because my PC might need cleaning, might be because I thought it'd be funny to drop a load of meat right outside the hull to entice predators, who's to say? I began a holy crusade because that is what my Pope/King/Doctor/any other positions of power told me to do. Then I began my hike to Iverstead. Things weren't too interesting along the snowy trail. I learned from my last archery focus run to let sleeping bears lie, but still provoke them and lead them to a settlement because it would be funny. Throughout the process of the run, I actually had a bunch of new ideas come over me, from the logical such as poisons only on a higher difficulty, to the downright stupid and asinine, like trying to see how many people I can kill as a pacifist. It is just on top of a long list of challenge runs that should last me until I turn into a smoldering burnt out husk. Also, word of advice, if you are struggling to kill an ice wolf who out DPS's you, just bring the wolf to a lunatic with a missile launcher. Play fetch with this, motherfucker. So there are smart ideas, and the usual brand of, what the actual f*** are you thinking, Orph? How many times did you somersault yourself down the stairs as a child? But who in the right mind would attempt to kill a frost troll with a very horrible weapon, given trolls' natural regeneration? Well, here is the funny thing. I barely outdamage the troll's natural regeneration, so that means I can actually kill the frost troll. This either classifies as a test of patience, as I wait out in the middle of the parking lot in the middle of the night, getting hypothermia for the next gaming console that was already sold to the owner's brother, skill as someone who regularly exploits the wildlife of Skyrim's room temperature of the throat of the world's IQ, or just training archery to get me through the rest of the run, who's to say. Given my worst weapon and arrow combination, I won't be getting a lot of experience going forward. It took 10 minutes and 243 arrows, but eventually I turned the frost troll into the world's saddest and coldest pincushion. At least Pinhead thinks the troll is very hot. I at least got an arrow refund as some number I have no idea why people gravitate towards. And yeah, I think I will fortify my archery on some armor pieces, just so Alduin doesn't take 30 minutes. Oh well, I have the honor of headbutting old men to learn their experience they accumulated over a lifetime, just to disregard it and take advice from the top result at Google that is just a chatbot spewing garbage. And before I conclude my first of 2 recording sessions, I tried closing the game in Morthal, but the cultists had other plans. Glad to see they failed the perception check of there are guards nearby, dumbasses! Before I can enjoy the wonders of Usengravt coursing through my veins, some squatters set up shop outside the dungeon, and and I was told the house belongs to the landlords, so they had to go. They all began chasing this madman without too much thought going through their brain as I lead them to a nearby resistance camp. They all share a collective brain cell they left at home. At the very least, the horses can help out. As for Sovngarde, I just focused on the intro party, heading outside for a brief moment of respite before getting a hug with a pickaxe trying to cleave through my skull. I have used pickaxes before. They are not a very good weapon, but still better than my combination. At the very least, I can be glad necromancers don't have much in the way of protection. They got their roads from the discount bin at Walmart, where a stiff breeze will rip them in half. At least if I ever feel like embodying roid rage, I have an easy prop. The rest of Sovngarde goes how it normally goes, help settle the dispute between colonization and the indigenous populations by nuking the homeland with a space-age Death Star beam, and when the local vagrants try to tell me it's their lands, I just hop on the local scenery and let the pathfinding try to path itself to the nearest pit. I just breeze through the rest of Sovngarde, becoming the average Iowan, and inhaling a copious amount of ethanol, sprint naked through the snow on enough coke to make an addict blush, and avoid my arachnophobia just long enough to ignore my restraining order and arrive at Delphine's bedroom to progress the story. Next up comes Salakanir D's nuts. Yeah, I am but a flea trying to bite an elephant on the arse inside a stampede through the local village. But the dragon knows better. The lizard focused on the blade and not the Roman cosplayer. Once the dragon had enough of bad character writing to last a lifetime, it began focusing on me, for all of 5 seconds, until I led it to an orcish stronghold. Yeah, if I had a semblance of a brain that isn't a polished sphere, I wouldn't land directly in the middle of an encampment of the best race for melee attackers. Didn't go well for the dragon. I returned to Delphine, who is stuck on a rock, and I really don't feel ready for the embassy, so I think I should do some more prep work first. I am not at all concerned about my survivability. I am not a sweaty gamer trying desperately to hide my inferiority complex by playing games on the hardest difficulties, but I'm more concerned about my DPS, so I think I should buff that. The only way I can really improve it is by enchanting and equipping, and if there is a very roundabout way of doing things, I will do it. At the orphanage, I was invited to give an archery safety lesson since that was what replaced the cut art classes, but I failed to keep the safety on and shot and killed the kind caretaker. I think I needed the lessons more. I tell a runaway that their abuser is dead, and I get a warning I am going down a dark path and I should change my ways or the NCR will send hit squads after me. I haven't even begun my New Vegas challenge runs yet. They sense a dark presence in the force. Continuing to shirk my responsibilities because I didn't take my ADHD or autism meds yet, I decided to go to the house as someone who is not allowed within 1,000 feet of a park alone to grab his balls, and hack my way towards Afthand. Before I can get to my pacifism challenge, I am stuck on some rocks by a hot lady and some wolves. I can dispatch the Atronach without too much fuss. The furries, though, they are persistent with how often I make fun of them in my videos to hide the fact I might actually be one. Might be a suspicion. Once I ignore my problems for long enough, they leave me alone, and I begin diving through the Dwemer ruins. Yeah, I don't have much in the way of offense, so I'm going to have to do things the pacifist way. Well, I say that, but I led a spider onto a trap, and by Vectera, that was satisfying. The rest of the dungeon wasn't too interesting, just riding my elevator down, and just a copious amount of mushrooms that I pray wasn't a death cap, and strained my cranium on the most difficult of puzzles Todd could think of, and stressed by all these jokes told back to back. I took a nap only to be kidnapped. I skipped pleasantries, 360 quick scoped one of the fellow kidnappees, and get the key to the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary. I am only here for the Dark Brotherhood hood, and that is it. I don't fancy overthrowing a government today. Honestly, I just want to make a shorter run for once, though my rambling kinda pads out the runtime in an esoteric way. I then attempted to upgrade my gear, even running face first into a house for a few minutes before getting bored. With all my upgraded perks and enchantments, I feel ready enough to be able to do something to the elf stronghold. I give Malborn all my worldly possessions, since that is what the local con artist told me to do to reach enlightenment, and rode off to the embassy. Instead of giving an alcoholic some booze since this is dry January, I just let the sexist swine not have his way and throw a tantrum. I think this is the worst outcome for everyone involved. As for the elves, yeah, there was a reason I was dreading this. They are numerous and hit hard, and took quite a few drawn bashes and arrows to take one down, and there are 3 to start off with. I will need to play this cautiously. Once I had room to breathe, I let the elves funnel themselves into loading zone confusions, stepping back inside the embassy to heal. Once the courtyard's numbers started to dwindle, I could eventually come out of this excursion alright. Each zone I advance through is another sanctuary in this Palace of Torment, prying every elf from this mortal coil. I can at least be glad I'm at a low level, so the elves don't hit super hard and they don't have a lot of health, but they are still a bit tricky. Relindle took a bit to take out and did a number on me, but that is what having an emergency full heal is for. Once I took down the arrogant interrogator, I freed the prisoners and took a very roundabout fashion of disposing of the elves, by hiding on one of the rafters, confusing which direction is forward. Eventually the state of confusion could be ironed out, and I freed the servant girl to make up for my evil deeds. Hey, be good to me. I'm not that evil for once, and I make it out of the worst part of the run in a couple of pieces. Next up is running through the rodent den, full of mouse droppings and years of putting off cleaning out the basement, and now all the family heirlooms and memories are now rat food. I didn't feel like fighting at this point, so I just sprinted right to a man considered sane and rational by Nebraska standards, and we began our escapades in escaping. Glad to know that Thalmor only sends their most competent soldiers. I just booked it past everyone, leading the wizards to a bar fight since the two rival teams both suck, and I took the dementia patient back to some house. No idea if it is his, since I am the one with the memory issues, and we mapped out our next course of action. That of course being Carspire. As much as I would love to go to Woodstock on Valentine's Day, the no fun allowed helicopters flying overhead kinda ruins the mood, so I just dipped on inside. The resident Forsworn are a little more aggro today than usual, but when have they ever been a serious threat? I just solved the basic ass puzzles that ran out of a budget since Todd blew it all on the Elder Scroll puzzle, and got the information on how to start the resolution to this charade of a run. But before I dive into a hellacious time, I think I need more ammunition, so you know what that means. Littering a corner full of sticks and telling my friend to pick them up. Ready as I can be to wrap up this run, I return to the Greybeards to get an earful. I am beginning to regret turning the limiter on my hearing aid off at the concert. Once I was done getting the gang initiation ritual that does not involve me dropping my pants, I got the ability to clear away my brain fog. I f***ing wish. Yeah, I am really dreading Alduin, so needing to keep my ammo reserves in top shape, I ignored everything on my way up. I returned a hot take with a hot take, and we debated on the philosophical pleasantries on how many timelines can we shove our problems down until there is no point in existing in our current timeline. Before I pull out my roll of toilet paper embroidered with the knowledge of the gods of laxatives, I remembered I might need some healing. I made a quick pit stop at a couple alchemical stores for any healing medicines that claim to heal what ails me, though they are all probably a placebo. Ready as I can be, I unroll the leftover wrapping paper to be discarded after Christmas and watch the cats play around with the toy. To be honest, during the holidays, the cats are the real winners of Christmas. So Alduin. This fight can be the toughest fight on the run. I have a weapon without much in the way of protection or damage, so it will be a long war of attrition. I heal when I can, but the fireballs are proving to be a nuisance. Party Snacks is probably the most important character in this fight, just so I can keep the World Eater busy. Once the dragons got to half health, things got simple. Sure, Parthenax took a quick dragon nap, but I found a very nice spot where Alduin couldn't do anything except hurl flaming meteors at me. But he is stuck in place for the fight, unable to target me, as I can blink away from afar. Sure, he could probably just walk over the rocks and eat me for dinner, but that is assuming that his two brain cells aren't fighting for third place. At that point, the battle was good as won. It just took a long while as I chipped away at his massive health bar. Eventually, after 5 minutes, which I'm honestly astonished by, the dragon tucked tail and ran. As much as this would be cause for celebration, this is quickly turned to consternation, as next up is the Peace Council. I did check my bow's damage and it was up to 21 with my perks and numerous enchantments, so I did grow a little bit. If only this wasn't the same damage without perks as an orcish bow with a steel arrow. As much as I hate this quest, at the very least I can take solace in the fact I am a part of the PC Master Race, so I can quick save load my way through this bullshit, and this is the reason I refuse to play on console. Once I was well acquainted with the numerous loading screens of Skyrim, I got my ride share's number, which I go and call. I think he picked up the wrong guy. So for Skuldolphin, I am very much not a powerful character, so I don't spend very long here. I can handle a few regular Draugr without much fuss, but the Insomniac ones will cause me some issues. Plus I kinda want to be done with this run. I just speedrun my way through this place, solving the puzzles out of muscle memory without the muscle relaxants taking over and making me shit my pants. I at least can use the smart part of my brain to shoot down any spare fire pits onto the oil pans below. The same technique works wonders for the Overlord at the end. Honestly surprising how effective this is. At least the dungeon is a pretty quick one, and not wanting to have a standoff with the Dragon Priest, I just book it right to the afterlife by way of front flipping into a mysterious portal. If there is any one AI type that embodies artificial stupidity, it is the melee warriors, but soon somehow averts this archetype. He has a lot of health, and he is actually smart, and hides behind the pillars to avoid my fire, only popping out to use the unrelenting force shout that might as well be a gust of wind. So this fight was more a test of patience and timing, as I am impatient and fire willy-nilly and poorly time my shots as he's moving. Eventually the demigod has had enough of me becoming a Star Wars meme and lets me across the gap to grab my backup. Headbutting and interacting really expedites the recruitment process. Take note, army recruiters, if you need to bolster your armed forces, headbutt anyone who looks like they might survive basic training until they enlist for the glory of oil. Together we shout away at the fog until the arena is cleared enough for the final boss fight to begin. But I'm a passive onlooker, cheering onward as my backup does all the hard work. They don't do a good job, and are constantly on the ground, but oh well. I tried bringing along my overpowered backup, but seems he too is not having a good time finding his way to the brawl. This fight turned out a bit harder than the first, mostly because I don't have an easily exploitable cover to cheese behind. Eventually soon joins the fight to become the MVP, only for the loser elf to steal all the credit, saving the day, and I have successfully beat Skyrim as the worst possible archer. So what did we learn here today, kids? Yes, the archer is super powerful. I didn't struggle much in this run, besides having a super low DPS, but I don't think it is the archery that is overpowered. It is more so the fact that the AI is incredibly stupid in this game. Their pathfinding is running directly at the target so long as they can see them, and oftentimes they fail to take sudden shifts in elevation into consideration. Archery, or well, anything that involves range, preys upon this shortcoming and naturally exploits this to its fullest. Sure, stealth and enchantments also help, but all it does is expedites the process and decreases the time to kill. The only thing I had to fear were anything with ranged capabilities. At least I had some fun, despite my numerous disadvantages. Despite me being the worst archer, I still think I had an easier time than a lot of my other runs. Maybe at some point, I will find new ways to suffer, but barring upping the difficulty, which I don't want to do, just to keep runs on equal footing, I'm going to have to get a bit creative. That is what having a bunch of ideas in my dilapidated head is for. Also, I just wanted a shorter run to take a break from all the longer runs I've been doing lately. Before I conclude, I just want to give a shout out to all my patrons and YouTube members who await in the shadows as the inevitable stealth archer. Links to them along with my socials and Discord in the description. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.